All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardinellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And there's a little bit of a bump in the road here for Andrew Yang. Actually, we shouldn't say a but. It's not a bump. I mean, we should say it's like a pitfall in the road for Andrew Yang, a drought of polls. He needs polls in order to qualify for the next debate, but there are no polls on the horizon for a solid at least 2 weeks, and that deadline comes very shortly thereafter. So a lot of people are kind of wringing their hands and clutching their pearls, wondering if Andrew Yang will be able to indeed qualify. Cody, give us the details.
Well, I mean, I kind of noticed originally when they released the qualification stuff, right? The window, I was like, wow, that's like 20-ish days from now. It's a pretty tight window to when they will wrap up this poll qualification period. So I guess first thing, really quickly, I'm going to recap a little bit what we're talking about here. So the DNC released the thresholds to make it to the upcoming January debate about 4 or 5 days ago. And one of the things they mentioned was in order to make it, you're going to have to hit 5% or higher in 4 approved polls that were conducted between November 14th, which goes back a little over a month, by the way, and January 10th, 2020. Now, you might notice January 10th, 2020 is coming up pretty soon. And what makes that even more of an interesting wrinkle is that there's going to be 2 major holidays coming on in the middle of that. Now, this tweet is kind of what got me thinking about this today. One of the Twitter accounts I follow that follows that's how I kind of figure out what's going on with the polls when they're coming out, the debate tracker, and said, unless there is a prize poll today, it could be around 2 weeks until the next qualifying polls. Time to take a little break from this website and enjoy the holidays. Now, 2 weeks until the next qualifying poll when there's roughly 3.5, 4 weeks until it's time. About 3 weeks until it's time to qualify is pretty bad. Now, again, for a little recap, there's 5 candidates already on the stage. So throwing up the graph right here. It's put together from Zach Montalero over at Politico. And it kind of catalogs everyone who will be at the debates and the polls and where they're polling in them. So the green name means they're in. Biden's in, Buttigieg in, Klobuchar in, Sanders and Warren. The only people really who could benefit from feasibly another few polls at 5% or more in the next week or so would be Andrew Yang and Tom Steyer. Tom Steyer needing 2, Andrew Yang needing 3. Now, what's really unfortunate about this really tight window for polling for someone like Andrew Yang, by the way, almost no one else has a chance. It would take a literal miracle for anyone else to qualify aside from those 2. Just looking at the breakdown.
He's kind of like one of the only people actually on the chopping block.
Yeah, Steyer as well. But yeah, those 2 are about it. Which, again, just to highlight, it's kind of unfortunate for Andrew Yang. It's a little small, but you guys can see it. But, I mean, he was polling at about 3 to 4% just consistently. With 5% in there, and if he got if he functionally got like a 1% bump in the polls, and they released like 5 or 6 of them, he would probably be at about 5% in the majority of those polls. Like, he's very close and clearly trending up to where he needs to be. So I kind of figured originally, I'm like, he'll make it. I mean, it'll be tight. It's always tight for Andrew Yang in these things, but he's trending up there. He's literally like a 1.5 point bump away from just comfortably making it into this next debate.
Yeah.
However, something from an article was actually published even going back to when they first announced these, but at the time I just kind of went over a little bit. I noted there'd be some less polling during the holidays, but Patrick Murray, who's the director of the Monmouth University Polling Institute, he said that the institute currently plans to put out only 1 qualifying poll before the January deadline, which would not be good because Andrew Yang needs about 3 more qualifying polls, assuming it's 5% in all of them. So this is what I want to show you, Cardin. This is what is interesting because, I mean, of course, it's one thing to say, oh, yeah, they do less polls during the holidays because people are with their families or whatever. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
This is from the Political Alert Engine blog. They put this together. This is a couple graphs highlighting both GOP and Dem primary polls being released around Christmas weekend going back to 2016. And you will notice there was basically a complete drought in polls aside from 1 or 2 polls here and there for about 2 weeks leading into the thing. So what does this mean for Andrew Yang, who right around here, January 10th, you can see it's right where that last line is on the right-hand side. He needs at that point to hit qualifying polls in 3 of what's probably going to be 6 or 7 polls released. So the last thing I want to get into, because I want to get into this, Cardin, is, so according to this Political Alert Engine, that puts Andrew Yang at about 29% odds of qualifying for the debate. Tom Steyer at 17, the only double digits. So it's kind of a little bit of a roundabout way to get there, but that's what I kind of wanted to get to. I've seen both stories online around. No one can qualify. This is rigged. It's only going to be Amy Klobuchar because she's the only one that's going to get in because she got grandfathered in basically. and people saying, oh, it'll be fine, no big deal. It looks like the answer is kind of in the middle here, that it is going to be a big uphill battle for Andrew Yang. He's probably going, just looking at the historical numbers here, he's probably going to have to manifest that 1% to 2% jump in the polls in almost every single poll released if he's going to want to qualify. But I don't know about you, Cardin, but I don't. I think that is what's going to be what's happened, because I think that might be the realism of what happens when candidates miss a debate. I think it's going to happen when people don't see Cory Booker, they don't see Tulsi Gabbard, of course, they don't see Julian Castro. I don't know, man. But it is tough. I just want to highlight that. It is tough. Last thing I want to show, so this is
it's also what an odd number, because, I mean, 30%, 29%, that's so far from being low enough where you give up, but also it's not disheartening, but it's not heartening.
Well, it's tough.
You know what I'm saying?
But
that is a really difficult number.
I wonder what his odds were going into this most recent debate. Remember, he qualified with like a day or two to spare. Like, I think there was like 3 polls released, and one of them had to be it. So it's probably been close to that before in the past, right? But I just want to kind of like let people know that when people are saying this is going to be particularly tight window, like for these last few. So I was trying to show you guys that, like, historically, yes. He's probably going to have, as we look historically with the Dem polling, he's probably going to have, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 7 or 8 chances to get to 5% 3 times, which is tough. But, I mean, at the same time, 30% odds, you give me 30% odds on that, I'll take that a lot, you know?
Yeah.
I would take 30% odds, which, so I had this graph up before. You can see this is the, I think, predicted betting table. A lot of people are taking those odds because those are pretty good. But it is a real thing.
I mean, that is tough.
That
is tough.
It's going to be hard to overcome this giant gap in the polling. Now, I also don't see any reason why. There was calls, remember, from Cory Booker. Cory Booker kind of spearheaded the charge, but every candidate signed a letter to open the qualifying window up and make it so more candidates could qualify. The DNC held firm. Like, I have to imagine if something happens where it's like, I mean, all they really have to do is have 4, as long as 4 qualifying polls come out, the DNC could say, hey, everyone had a shot, right? As long as 4. But even what if 3 qualifying polls come out and realistically only Andrew Yang and Tom Steyer have a shot, an outside shot at that? Is the DNC actually responsible for that at all? Could they just say, hey, sorry, they didn't do polls because of Christmas or New Year's or whatever? I mean, I don't know what does happen then, because they're not gonna open it up. Like, if Andrew Yang and Tom Steyer don't qualify, they're not gonna say, well, they're over that. They're definitely not doing it. If they didn't do it for the last debate, they're not gonna do it for this one. So I wonder, man, do you think he's actually? Like I said, I personally think just if they release 6 or 7 polls, he will be at 5% and 3 of them will qualify. I just think that's where he's going to be pulling out in this next cycle of polls. Because I think the work from a month ago is going to start panning out.
And it, to me, once again, this is where the intangibles kick in. What is the culture of polling at this time of year? We know the culture of polling is to disappear for a couple of weeks because guess what? Pollsters have families too, and they want to be able to go home and enjoy the holidays. However, if it's anything like the movie industry, oh my gosh, that first Monday after the week, after the holidays, your phone rings all day long with everybody trying to restart every initiative, restart every project, plan lunch to talk about everything that we talked about the 3 weeks before everybody went on hiatus. And so my question is this really a drought of polls where we're going to go 2 weeks with no polls and then he's only got a shot at a couple of them, you know, in that last week? Or will it be where everybody just releases their poll that week when they get back, and there's the same amount of polls that would have come out in that same 4-week period as any other 4-week period, just condensed into a week?
Well, I mean, who knows what will happen in the future, right? But just historically, it appears that going back to the last major presidential cycle in 2016, that is more or less what we saw, where the polling did just kind of freeze up there for a little bit. And then, I mean, like
why does following Andrew Yang have to be so stressful?
No, I want to bring up, because you did bring up an interesting point there. I wonder if perhaps we would see that manifest over a slightly larger period, but you can also see from both of these, the amount of polls that are concluding at the end of December and the amount that start at the beginning of January, that there is going to be what I've also been kind of feeling as well, which I'm glad you brought that up, that while there will be a maybe 2-week gap, I think they'll be making up for lost time a little bit, especially because of something else that's going on I want to bring up. Another reason why I think we'll see more polls this time than we saw in 2016. Now, it is going to be a little bit difficult for, really honestly, Tulsi Gabbard, probably the most who'd benefit from this, and maybe Tom Steyer. But something else that Mr. Murray from the Monmouth Polling Institute brings up is that he says that the focus on impeachment could tilt pollsters towards conducting national surveys rather than early voting states, which could hurt candidates who've had no choice but to invest heavily in advertising in places like Iowa and New Hampshire, which really quickly isn't a bad point, especially because Andrew Yang actually polls very well in New Hampshire. He definitely would like New Hampshire polls. But I do wonder, going back to your point, a potential people kind of getting back to work, that surge of polls, I wonder if impeachment and trying to get the public's temperament in impeachment, I wonder if that could lead to maybe even an additional higher polling than you would imagine it being average. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be a lot of people interested in the opinions of impeachment from citizens. And when they do these polls, they generally also ask you who you voted for president because it helps kind of contextualize your answer on impeachment, right? Yeah. So I think that could be the wrinkle. That could be one of the reasons why, even though historically it would look like Andrew Yang would have to get like 65% of the released polls in the window qualifying for him to qualify, we still see him at about 29% odds according to one metric, right? So I think that could be the wrinkle. Of course, it also could work the other way, and it's a shift towards state polls and a shift towards national polls could work against Andrew Yang as well, because he generally, I think, almost always has had like one or two, or had one New Hampshire poll in his when he qualifies. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like he always has that one New Hampshire 5 or 6% that helps him qualify.
Yeah, he
might be lacking on that due to the impeachment narrative as well, but it could lead to more overwhelm. Who knows?
Well, and also this will really be the first week where we start seeing if all of his expenditures in those early states starts paying off.
Oh yeah.
Because we really haven't seen too much data coming out of any of these areas where he's dumped so much money. I mean, this seems like eons ago, but it was only 10 days ago that we were making videos about how Andrew Yang is going to be spending that $10 million he got in Q3 and analyzing.
Late November is when he started a lot of his big advertising pushes.
Yeah, and we started analyzing his commercials that were coming out, and then we started hearing how he said, okay, next week we're actually going to do a big ad buy in, X, Y, or Z locality. Well, it takes a week of people seeing the commercials, and then a week of people actually, starting to respond to the pollsters, and then, they get their week to compile all of their data and then release the data.
Perhaps a debate. Perhaps you see his ads and then he has a pretty strong debate performance and you go, hey, I've seen the ads. No, I agree. And I think isn't that also weird? That there's one more thing I want to touch on before we move on to this topic. Yeah. And that was the last thing I want to touch on with you. Don't you think it is kind of weird though that I get that it's Christmas coming on, but
why is that weird? Christmas comes every year.
No. But because of when they had that debate, it's like there's been like no real run of polls after the debate. Typically there's a debate and they do a big run of polls so we can get an idea of how the debate actually impacted the field.
Yeah.
But because the holidays, it's like the debate happens and then like that debate might, in the grand scheme of things, unfortunately for Andrew Yang, it did pretty well. And again, I'll show the speaking time. Remember, like a lot of people said he stood out as one of the standout people. He barely spoke at this debate. The only problem is, if this is the debate where the debate happens 2 days later, weekend, new media cycle, holidays, New Year, impeachment, like, is this debate going to mean anything in the grand scheme of things, that December one? Because it feels like if they don't even do any polls to chart what really happened because people want to be home with their family for the New Year and stuff, it just feels like, wow, what a weird debate that's going to be in the grand scheme. It's going to be one that just kind of came and went, just whatever. Might as well cancel it with the labor dispute because they are not charting anything about this. But kind of like you said, I think we're going to see almost like you said a big surge of polls, especially around the impeachment narrative because it's important. They have data on this. And there's going to be nobody really talking or thinking about what happened.
They want data. They want to be able to patch their sinking ship.
Well, I mean, there is no they. Everybody's just going to want data in general. I mean, if I'm running for president, I want to know what people who are supporting me or my opponents are saying about impeachment. And like everybody wants to know what's going on. It's the biggest story. It's really important for the kind of political future of any candidate or any person in politics to kind of know what the people want. So we're going to see, I think, a bit of a, I don't want to say like, these posters are wrong. You'll see more. I just have to imagine people are going to be interested. They're going to be asking people the impeachment question and then hopefully asking the presidential question as well. It's just, wow, it's going to feel a lot like that debate never happened. More so than other debates. Every debate kind of feels like it never happened a few weeks later, but holy cow, man, this December debate's just going to be like in one ear, out the other, which is unfortunate because Andrew Yang did perform very well.
Well, I don't think it'll be in one ear, out the other. I definitely think that its effects will not be as long lasting.
Yeah, I mean, just there wasn't like a lot of talk about it. It was just, oh, that was the debate, and then everyone's like, just kind of. It really was. That was like the Thursday before the weekend going. Like the next day, everyone left town to go. Like anyone going back with their family for like, you know what I mean? Like that was the. What's the word for it? Kind of like the. It reminds me of like in school where you're kind of like watching the clock, like, okay, I'm basically done. I want this weekend to happen. I want to get over with I want to get the holidays over.
Senioritis.
A lot of people are stressed about the holidays. People just want to get them over with. It kind of felt like, okay, the debate's out of the way. Now let's just everyone go home for the weekend and we'll figure out what happens later. And I don't know. Not too big of a deal. I just thought it was interesting to bring in because, again, just historically, I think impeachment might save it a little bit, but historically, this is a big drought for polls, and this is when, I mean, we're talking mostly about Andrew Yang here because aside from him and Tom Steyer, no one else is going to benefit from this. I think it's also kind of funny. You'll notice that despite Tom Steyer having 2 qualifying polls, he has less odds than Andrew Yang because they recognize that he's trending down. I don't have it pulled up yet, but one day I'll have it pulled up. Basically, Tom Steyer was polling at about 3 or 4%, right? And then Michael Bloomberg entered the race, and then Michael Bloomberg started polling at 3 or 4%, and Tom Steyer started polling at like 2%. So I guess it was like just the billionaire crowd that's like, whoever's the richest, that's what I vote for. But anyway, so that's all I got on this. I just wanted to let you guys know and show you that and show that it is, because of the holidays and this kind of relatively tight window, it is going to be tough. I mean, Andrew Yang, and by one metric's at 29% odds of making it. But at the other end, there could be a potential bump due to the impeachment narrative. It could lead to more national polls over state polls, but there's a couple other things here that might be working towards Andrew Yang. I think one of the reasons why he still is kind of good money's being bet on, and people realize it isn't going to be as cut and dry as there won't be enough polls. So that's all I got to say on that one.
This is going to be a wild ride. Everybody go home and enjoy the holidays.
Yeah, and come back.
It reminds me of that one text that Andrew Yang had the last time the Yang Gang was in this situation, where he said, guys, go home, enjoy your weekend. There's going to be polls on Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, just kind of enjoy your holidays.
Enjoy your holidays. Do the best you can, man. Because ain't nothing happening for these next 10 days, at least in the terms of polling.
Being released. Yeah.
And being released. And so that sword of Damocles?
Yeah.
Okay, so that sword of Damocles, we know at least last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so just
weird.
Enjoy your turkey dinner, your Christmas turkey, and your Hanukkah. I don't know, what's a traditional Hanukkah meal? I don't know, but enjoy your
whatever it
enjoy
is.
your holiday gruel with that sword of Damocles hanging up. It's like Braveheart, where they're all sitting there eating out of the wooden bowls before the guy falls from the ceiling.
I would say, because just keep in mind this was going to. I would say it's more like we actually have. I would say the opposite. Just, you know what? Relax, take it easy, because for 2 weeks nothing is changing no matter what. There's nothing being done to change things either way for 2 weeks. People that are out there canvassing and phone banking, just keep it up, right? Like there's people ask, how do I get polled? Honestly, it's probably easier to help either like do something to raise awareness of Andrew Yang than get polled. It's not that, like, they don't poll very many people, right? It's easier to impact change other way. But for the next couple of weeks, it really seems like, and this is just based off one metric, but it seems like historically we are not going to see a whole lot. The only wrinkle I could see to this could potentially be impeachment, but I don't know. I would just say enjoy the rest of 2020. Enjoy the new year, because after that, that's when it gets to be really stressful, when polls come out seemingly every single day, and Andrew Yang needs to qualify for all of them.
Word. So anyway, let us know what you guys think. I'm also curious, is there anybody that has put down actual bets?
Oh yeah, that was on the predictive betting market. Yeah.
No, any of our fans have they actually placed bets? This would be actually, this would be fun. I would place a bet on this, Cody.
Oh, you'd gamble?
On something like this, yeah, I'd do something fun. I'd place a bet.
I'll tell you what, on the stream tomorrow night, we'll go over that.
Okay, cool. Rock on. Anyway, let us know if you guys have actually bet on Yang. This is actually getting really interesting. I would like to know if anybody has actually used the predicted odds in order to bet on Yang yet. If anybody has actually put their money where their proverbial mouth is, that'd be really interesting. So anyway, hey, let us know if you've been betting on Yang. Follow us on Twitter at PSP Radio 1. Call us at 1-833-PSP Radio if you want to give us a voicemail. And always make sure that you hang out with us on the streams. This is Problem Solver Politics. We'll see you guys in the next video.